Hello chess fans! Today I want to show you a decisive game between Gukesh and Ding. And so this game was played in the Tata Steel Masters in January of this year. So I think it's a very good preview of what we might see tomorrow when the World Championship match starts. So the game started off with e4 by Gukesh. We saw e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. This is the regular Italian game. We see knight f6. So clearly Ding is allowing the fried liver, but okay, at this level, maybe it's not the most critical, even though Levon Aronian often plays it. Bishop c5, so we see a natural development scheme, and we see this trendy move, which is a4. And the idea of a4 is simply to just gain space, and also it creates a square for the bishop. For example, once there's a pawn on d6, and okay, the bishop would have to move, then the knight threatens to go to a5 and trap the bishop. So for example, after castles, one of the main moves here is a6, and now if they go rook a1, then you can pick up the bishop. Or maybe you have to go bishop a7, and then if they go knight b2, now you can sort of pick up the bishop. So a4 circumvents that threat and also gets some space. So we see a5, and then we see bishop g5. And bishop g5 is another one of those moves that is very, very trendy. The idea is just to put pressure here, but also it's very annoying for black to sort of unpin because the bishop can't go back to unpin. So often black has to commit to h6 and g5, as we see in this game with h6, bishop h4, and bishop h7. This is sort of a move you can throw in whenever this h6 move because white doesn't want to give up their bishop pair. We see knight a3. Okay, so he's intending some sort of maneuvers, or knight b5. Queen e7, just a natural developing move. He doesn't really know where the bishop wants to go. It could go here, here, or here. So he's also preparing that he could castle queenside in the future. Knight b5, bishop b6. Okay, he wants to save his bishop. Queen b3. Now this is the first move, which is a little bit maybe unstandard. Maybe you would expect something like castles here. But okay, if black hasn't castled, there's never any ideas of knight takes g5, so clearly Gukesh had some ambitious ideas here, basically being that he's going to castle queenside and try to get Ding to overcommit. And finally, Ding does commit, because honestly, there's not much else you can do here. If you play, for example, if you play a move like bishop d7, he's going to castle queenside, castles queenside, then, okay, you hang this pawn immediately. So clearly, Ding has to do something, so he decides to go g5, bishop g3, and now he decides to castle kingside. And so now, by inserting g5 first before castles kingside, there's no longer any knight takes g5 ideas. Now castles queenside, we see, okay, the start of a very, very, very ambitious position for white. Now, in the actual World Championship match, I don't really expect something that's this double-edged, especially in the first match, though I expect Gukesh to slowly start going for these positions because it's slightly more his style. And one of the reasons why, at least for the average casual player like myself, or amateur player, it seems much more interesting to see Gukesh play than Ding, because his style of play is very, very aggressive and very, very forcing, which is something that, as amateur players, that makes more sense to us, at least. So we saw the move knight h5, makes sense, going for the bishop by Ding. Now we see d4, so Gukesh breaks in the center, and this is all, so far, very good moves. Now takes, and here we see the first sort of inaccuracy, but okay, it's hard to classify it as such because it's still a good move. Now here, Gukesh decides to take with this knight. Now, he probably should have taken with this knight, and it's because of Ding's next move, which looks very surprising, which is g4. And actually, this knight has nowhere to go, really, that is strong. For example, if he takes here, intending to give the knight a square on d4, then we see b takes, knight d4, bishop takes d4, rook takes d4, and c5. And wherever the rook goes, the e4 pawn is loose, but also we can go bishop e6, and the b file, is open, and this position looks to be quite nice for black. Apparently, black is a little bit better here. So he doesn't really want to take. So in the game, he decided to go for knight h4, which makes sense. But now the knight's a little bit offside after takes, and queen takes e4. Even this came as a pawn sacrifice. Though it makes some sense because Ding committed his pawns way too far towards the king. Above his king. So here we saw rook a1 and now queen h7. And okay, the position is very, very difficult, clearly. But okay, Gukesh clearly has a lot of development, and the position is very, very tricky. So here, Gukesh played this move rook d2, and it looks really natural. Like, how are you supposed to progress? But often when you're down a pawn, you have to probably try to force things. You have to try to attack somehow. And here, Gukesh had to see this move bishop d3, queen g7, and knight g6. Like, a very, very brilliant move. And the cool thing about this move is actually the rook has pretty much nowhere to go. For example, the rook can't go to e8, otherwise you take it. If the rook goes to d8, pause the video, try to find the move for white here. White has a pretty nice move, bishop h4, and actually the rook is just getting trapped. For example, if they play a move like, let's say like knight f6, then we can go d5, knight b4, and maybe just knight e7, king h7, something like queen c3 or something, queen c4 to put pressure like this, and this pin should just be absolutely deadly. And if not knight f6, I mean, there's no way to defend the rook. So knight g6 would have to be seen, and this position, the engine's favorite line for black is to just sack the exchange, and okay, apparently after either takes, white should be approximately equal. Okay, but instead of that, we saw rook d2, which is the first inaccuracy. Now Ding gets a chance to go bishop d7, which we see why it makes a difference. Now he can go rook e8 because the rook would be defended. Bishop d3, queen g7, bishop f5. Strong move, intending to get the knight to f5. There's a famous quote by Gary Kasparov that a knight on f5 is worth at least the exchange. So here, Gukesh is only down the pawn, so maybe he thought that would be fully compensating. So we see knight takes e5, queen g5, queen b5. Now the queen looks a little bit strange on b5, but okay, it defends the knight. Rook f8, we see Ding trying to initiate some trades. Knight g7, he's trading. Now we see d5, and okay, we see some more trades. And at this point, the position gets really, really dire, and we see that Ding plays this move knight b4, and at this position, I think Gukesh really had to sort of realize that he needed to keep his pieces near his king. But okay, it's very difficult to play because you're down a pawn and your king is weak, so you have nothing to play for. So at least what Gukesh thought was, okay, I'll play queen b7 and I won't be down a pawn anymore. It's often a nice way to play because, okay, let's say your opponent doesn't find all the best moves. Well, okay, now you're not even going to an endgame down a pawn. While, okay, let's say your opponent doesn't find all the best moves here. Maybe at worst, they can go into an endgame up a pawn. Okay, so we see queen f5, queen b5. Now we see knight a2, and at this point, Ding plays it very accurately. He's able to maneuver his queen in, and queen g1 is extremely accurate, preventing the king from going to f2, and also threatening queen f1, and also queen takes g2. So, okay, Gukesh plays this move. Apparently, the only move was rook d1, and after check, king e1 is the only move. If king d3, we see something similar with knight b4, but king e1 was apparently, white is not losing yet, but okay, it was -2. So king d3, this is just game over at this point. You can't really move your king up. We saw here. Now queen e1, absolutely excellent move. The rook is actually just trapped, and there's really no way you can defend the rook. The only move is queen e2, and just take a few seconds to see if you can find the winning move on queen e2. The winning move on queen e2 is queen c5, and there's actually no way to stop queen c5 with checkmate. The only way to do that is rook c2, and then, okay, at least we go up a rook. So he can't defend with that, and otherwise the rook is trapped, so Gukesh went for this move, rook d3, and now you might think, okay, now he's going to cash out, and then he'll win the game. But no, even more accurate, the rook is still trapped, and if you play a move like rook c3, then queen d2. And after king c4, rook e4, and in this position, Gukesh resigned the game. So yeah, this was maybe one of Ding Liren's last wins of this year, and it was absolutely a stunning game. Ding, I think, proved a lot of things. First of all, he proved that he can play very, very tactically. He also proved that he can at least play for the win in e5, which is something that I personally find very, very entertaining. And especially for us e5 players, it shows you that, okay, you need to be a little bit dynamic. You need to be able to take risks regardless of what your playing style is. And in this game, clearly Gukesh took a lot of risks. And if you're wondering why this is a game over, by the way, because after queen d3, you have queen d1. And okay, if the rook blocks, then you just checkmate. And if you move, then if rook a3, then this checkmate would be quite nice. And if this one takes, and here you have this nice move, rook c4. And regardless of White's next move, unless they give you a check, you're going to go rook c3. For example, like bishop d3, you're going to go rook c3 and then queen a2. And that's another nice mate. So yeah, Gukesh resigned. So yeah, this was a very, very excellent game. And now to do a little bit of the talk on, okay, the match is obviously coming tomorrow. What do I personally think is going to happen? Well, okay, the experts are all saying that Gukesh is going to win in a landslide because Ding's form has been very, very off recently. And actually, Ding has not won a classical game in something like 4 months. So, okay, like a betting man would probably put their money on Gukesh. And I do hear the argument for Gukesh. Personally, I actually do also want Gukesh to win because at least Gukesh is part of my generation. I think I'm slightly older than him, but definitely I see a lot of my own playing styles in him. Obviously, of course, all these players at this level do it much, much higher than me, but okay, I see a little bit of what my play wants to be in Gukesh, and okay, hopefully he wins. But if I'm being objective about it, I do also think Gukesh has a slight advantage. I think the advantage is a little bit overstated by the media because, okay, I don't anticipate that Gukesh is going to come right out the gate swinging. I also think Gukesh is the type of player that could easily lose the game. Though I think that if Ding Liren, for example, loses 2 games in a row, I think that is going to be a downward spiral and the match is going to get out of hand. But I think that if the game is sort of back and forth like it was with the Nepo match where one player takes the game, the next player takes the game, and okay, eventually opening theory goes out the window, as we saw with the last World Championship match, then I think that this match could just be very, very competitive and it would be just a very, very nice match. So in the end, I think I'm going to predict that Gukesh wins in maybe a +2 score after 12 games and we don't go to any tiebreakers. I predict the first 2 games will be drawn and maybe a decisive game in game 3. Maybe first 3 games drawn, but I'm expecting that Gukesh will at first play solid, and so will Ding, and then eventually, okay, Gukesh will start forcing the issue as we saw in this game. So yeah, that's in today's video, guys. If you like this video, please remember to leave a like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing what happens in the World Championship match.